Noah, of human imagination and the fruits of experience. Genesis 6:9 through 11:32. These, the generations of Noah. I called out to the one who heard me say, "Save me from the plausible liars." What can be said to a twister of truth, someone who preys upon trust, who mints coin from desire? Bludgeon the bastards with bricks and bats? Fire them? Forbid them to sit on a bench in the sun? No matter what I say, they contradict it. I say, peace. My soul wants peace. But they say, war. Noah's flood and the Tower of Babel tell of the second creation and fall. They account for the received world, imagined and made by man, God's image, from existing mud, after God made the heavens and the earth by saying, and from nothing. Genesis recounts 10 generations from Adam to Noah, and again 10 generations from Noah to Abraham, marking the temporal limit of divine patience. The sages observed, when God hid his face from the generation of the flood, he established the world from a single man, Noah. Adam brought death into the world. But before the flood, people never died young, nor suffered cold and fever. They only needed to plant one crop to feed themselves for 40 years. They could travel from one end of the world to the other in no time flat, uprooting trees while they walked. They took no more notice of a lion's or leopard's bite than that of a flea. As for the weather, it was always mild, like the time between the festival of unleavened bread and the festival of weeks. One of the great men of a later time, some say Rabbi Samuel, son of Nachmani, had a headache and lamented, "This is what the generation of the flood did for us." As Noah stepped out from the ark, the lion clawed his genitals. So, later, when that man, who was born circumcised, sported with a woman, his seed scattered, and he was humiliated. According to the rabbis, after Noah planted a vineyard and drank too much wine, his middle son Ham entered the paternal tent, saw his father's nakedness, and castrated him. In return, Noah cursed Ham, saying, "Your sons will serve his brothers, and because you have kept me from pleasure in the dark, as a servant desires the shadow, your seed will be dark and ugly." Rabbi Chia added, "Below decks in the ark, Ham coupled with a dog." That is, Rabbi Levi explained, Ham tried stamping his own coin to make a creature in his own image, and this in God's house. The imagination of the heart of man is evil from his youth. In Psalm 92, when David sings, "I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart," he means with both my inclination to good and my inclination to evil, so that my heart should not be in conflict. A midrash cautions that a man who walks with a companion after a time becomes his friend. But the evil imagination is inborn and grows up with a person. Given the opportunity, it will overwhelm him. You have no greater enemy. In another legend, Noah saved the coats of skins that God made for Adam and Eve to clothe their nakedness. After the flood abated, Ham took Adam's coat and gave it as an inheritance to his grandson Nimrod. When Nimrod put on Adam's coat, every animal, beast, and bird lay down before him. The Assyrians thought this was an homage to Nimrod's own power, so they made him king. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. The people of the plain said, once every 1,656 years, that's a span from Adam to Noah, the firmament totters, as it did in the flood. Let's be provident and raise supports for heaven here in Shinar in the east. Come, let us build a city and a tower and a name. Lacking stones to build their city, Nimrod's masons baked bricks. Workers carried hods up a ramp on the east and went down on a ramp to the west. Work went so smoothly that a man laying one brick found 2 bricks had been laid. Another, spreading mortar over one course, found 2 courses had been set. The tower rose 7 miles high. When a laborer fell from the height, they paid no heed. But if a brick dropped, they sat down and wept, "Woe is us! When will another come in its stead?" Nimrod told his people, "Why settle for life in the lower world while God takes the upper for himself? Let us ascend to heaven and beat him with axes." They formed into 3 groups. The first one said, "Let us go up and dwell there." From there, God scattered them. The second group waged war on heaven and were transformed into monkeys, spirits, and demons. The third contingent said, "Let us raise idols on high." Abraham, the son of Terah, watched them construct the city and tower and cursed the builders, praying, "Destroy, O Lord. Divide their tongues." God swore, "You say, 'Let us come up.' I say, 'Let us come down,' and there confuse their language." The Hebrew verb halal, to pollute, defile, profane, also means to begin. It first appears in Genesis 4:26, when men began to call upon the name of the Lord. Again in chapter 6, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth. After the flood, when Noah began to be an husbandman. And when God said of Nimrod's kingdom, "Behold, one people, and they all have one language, and this they begin to do." Before the birth of David, when God told the child Samuel what he would perform against Eli's son's unrestrained evil, he offered the prophet this rare bit of explication: "When I begin, I also make an end." And the Lord came down to see what the sons of man had built. Nimrod's nation could have imagined and made another heaven on the earth. Instead, they raised a city and the tower. In David's prayer, "Do not kill them so my people won't forget. Lord, scatter them and bring them down for their foul mouths and loose lips. Take them in their pride. Curse their lying speech. They are the builders of the tower." Judah Bar Nachmani observed, "This generation following the flood, you'd think they'd profit from the experience of the one preceding. No? As for the tower they built, a third was burned, a third was swallowed up, and a third remained. From atop that ruin, the palms of Jericho look like grasshoppers." The Assyrians called Babel or Babylon, Bab Ilu, Gate of God. Therefore is the name of the city called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Rashi compared the annihilation of the flood to the dispersion of mankind. Noah's generation did not stretch forth their hands against God, but there was strife among them, and they were drowned. Nimrod's kingdom waged war against God, but the people conducted themselves with love and friendship toward each other, in one language and one speech. And so they lived. Violence is hated, and great is peace. Rabbi Hiya adds, all depends upon the word of mouth. As soon as their speech was scrambled, God scattered them. But in a time to come, the Lord will purify the many languages into one, so all may call upon the name and serve him. And on that day, Zechariah wrote, the Lord will be one, and his name one.